Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Future Tech podcast series. It's me, Charlie Sell, the Group MD of Arrows Group, where I get a chance to speak with thought leaders, senior level people within both the transformation and technology space, asking a bit about their story, how they started their respective businesses, but also what they're passionate about, and specifically the journey that either they're taking their business on or the value that they see they're offering their market. We'll always finish on that all-important career advice to many of our STEM listeners. And I'm really pleased to announce today that our university network has broken 40 universities. So we're now on the career portal of 40 universities across the UK, Netherlands, and 3 in Germany. So thank you to everyone who is embracing this podcast series, and always feedback is greatly appreciated. So I'm really pleased to have Trish Hemsworth and Mike Pendell with me today. They're the founders of Times3. Times3 is an international transformation management and delivery specialist. And today we're going to actually be focusing on quite a specific topic, which is around transformation with a focus on digital and technology. So again, to many of our STEM listeners, but also our wider community, a lot of what we will cover today, I think, is really going to resonate and give you a really nice insight into the real world sort of application of transformation and how it has a really positive impact, but actually what it's about. So for once, I'm going to be doing a lot less talking, and I'm going to be passing over to Trish and Mark, who are going to be leading this conversation and a lot of what we will discuss today. And I really hope you'll find it all super, super interesting, as I have done in all of the research that we've gone into this. So without further ado, Trish and Mark, welcome to the show. Trish, shall we start with you, and welcome to the Future Tech podcast series.
Thanks very much indeed, Charlie, and hi everyone. It's a great opportunity today, and I hope that the session's going to prove useful and informative. A little bit about technology through Mark. How you take products. Teams don't often like talking to the technology, they don't understand it. So I ended up in a very unique role. It's a great opportunity for me, and I started to learn more about technology. And consequently, I evolved my career through technology roles, very much focusing more on how things could be done systemically. And that brought me to a point in my career where I decided that I wanted to be more of a consultant, and I wanted to help other companies to do specific projects with a focus on technology and transformation. And I've been very fortunate to be able to do that for over 10 years now. And during that time, I've also been very fortunate to work abroad and to take opportunities in other countries, which I would encourage anyone who has an opportunity to work internationally to do where possible. So it was during one of my recent transformation programs when I was working abroad that I met Mark. Mark and I have known each other now for a few years, and I'm now going to hand over to Mark, and he can tell you a little bit more about his background and how he came to work with me.
Okay, thanks, Trish, and Charlie, thank you for that great introduction. Hi, everybody. It's a great opportunity for us to speak to you. And maybe just a little bit about myself. I actually did start out in technology. I started working for a French computer company in the United States, and then I was expatriated to France, where I got into the consulting business, working for KPMG in Paris, and then for Celerant in both London and Paris, so kind of a classic path, if you will. Many of the different types of things I've done have to do. It's funny, I had started out in technology and I thought, oh, I want to get away from that. But it seems that all the missions that I've done for different clients in many different sectors, chemical, aerospace, manufacturing, telecoms, and technology, it always comes back to technology, the different projects that we do. And so I worked on a lot of different transformation projects, particularly one with Trish, and that's how we got the idea for our business Times3. I've worked on M&A deals of different parts of the whole deal cycle for both corporates and private equity funds. I've also done some restructurings, mainly in France and then all across Europe. I'm American, by the way. I lived in Paris for 24 years, and I'm now based in Milan. So Times3, Trish and I got the idea of working together, and our skill sets are very complementary, although we come from different backgrounds. We want to combine our consulting businesses where we are focused on international management of transformation programs and their delivery. So Times3 means transformation, innovation, mindset, execution, and sustainability. The 3 refers to both Trish and myself and our group of associates. All those elements have to come together so that we're able to deliver successful transformation programs to our clients, whether in the private equity world, to what we call their portfolio companies that are owned by the funds, or for different corporate clients. All these elements need to come together so that we can be successful and absolutely delight our clients. And everything we do does have a component of digital technology and transformations. Maybe Trish, you want to talk a little bit more about that, what the key components are.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So digital transformation, I'm sure you've all heard the word transformation anyway, many, many, many times over the last God knows how many years. But digital transformation is really about how businesses integrate technology into all areas of the business. But fundamentally, it's about how they operate and deliver value to customers. Businesses exist because of their customers. And often, sometimes, especially during the transformation cycle, customers get diluted or businesses forget why the customers are there. We always need to remember customers, and we'll come back to that later in the podcast. But digital transformation also generates a cultural change within organizations about people continually wanting to develop as people, and also because quite often processes change and things need to be done in a different way. And that's why under Times3, one of our key pillars is also about innovation. It's about how we do things, finding things to do in a simpler way. Sometimes it's not about being more complicated or complex. If you actually look around you, and I'm sure we're all open to so much advertising every single day, some of the most successful advertising and the most successful products are those which are very simple. But there are other benefits to leveraging digital technology across organization because it also helps organizations to work more effectively. What do we mean by that? It's about reducing costs and working efficiently. And the more organizations can work in such an operational efficiency way, the more that they can generate value. And all businesses exist for the benefit of wanting to generate profit. And for a lot of the companies that we work with, there's invariably some sort of shareholders or a company that owns them that wants a return on their investment. There are 3 key parts to digital transformation: people, processes, and technology. And we're going to talk briefly about each of those in turn. But just remember that digital technology is about anything and everything that you can use technology for. Mark?
Thanks, Trish. So, people are fundamental to what we do in terms of transformation programs, especially those that involve digital technology. If you don't have the people element right, you can have the technology right, you can have the processes right, you can be satisfying and serving your customers the best way possible. But if the people are not aligned and the troops don't understand what the overall goals are, it's just not going to work. So people are key, and without the right people and skill set, it's difficult to deliver a successful transformation. One of the reasons we work with companies is because they often don't have the experience internally to do transformations. Specifically, it's a full business, large-scale transformation program. So Times3 help by providing hands-on leadership, support, guidance, and mentoring. We help people within the organization to develop their skill sets. We call that upskilling, to enable them to contribute positively to the delivery of successful transformations. Separately, though, we also help the management and the leadership of organizations during the transition period. And remember, a business does not stop operating while a transformation happens. Transformation takes place in parallel. You have to be able to do both. You have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Sometimes companies just don't have enough people to manage their business's usual activities alongside transformation. So what we do at Times3, we introduce best practice standards, how to best do things from planning through to delivery management. We work alongside people within the organization by leveraging their knowledge of the business and our knowledge on how to deliver those transformation programs. We mentor and coach people so they develop new skills and become more well-rounded individuals, which allows them to progress on their career path. We work with the HR teams on their talent programs to help build the best talent teams. We help companies drive fast adoptions of new behaviors. Remember, the M in Times3 is mindset. We have to change mindsets. Mindset, sorry. So we have to help the companies drive fast adoption of new behaviors towards long-lasting results. We like to say that transformation is a train journey. And I think that, Trish, you're really the best to speak about what we mean by a train journey and how this happens.
So we've used this analogy many times and in many presentations to help people to understand what transformation is about. How is it a train journey? Well, first of all, it has a starting point, and typically it has an end point. So we know where we want to start from. We know the journey we want to take. We often know the route we want to take because we've been involved in developing that transformation plan. We know which direction we need to go in, and arguably we know how fast we need to go because we've agreed when we need to deliver. So transformation journey, if you imagine it as a train, we might have 10 carriages. Along the way, we may actually add more carriages, and certainly both Mark and I have worked in businesses where during transformation, and one of the ways in which businesses grow is that they go and buy another business. And that certainly happened to both of us. And then we start another part of a transformation as well. But in essence, we're taking people on a train journey. Mark and I are the ones that drive the train. We've got the train, we've got all the people on board the train. We know which route we're going to go. Sometimes, yes, as we've all experienced, as I'm sure you can all recall, there are delays. Sometimes the train has to stop. We stop at destinations. Sometimes people get on the train and sometimes people get off the train. Why does that happen? Transformation is very important to businesses to succeed, but sometimes people find it difficult through the mindset and the change of culture. They're not ready for all of those changes and they decide that the way the company is moving in the future is not for them. But what we have to all remember, and part of my advice to you all, is that out of transformation, out of change comes opportunity. And opportunities, specifically within careers and working within organizations, generate new opportunities to learn, new opportunities to do new roles. So for us, we have a transformation journey. We start it, we take the train on the journey, we lead the train, and then of course we usually end up at some destination where we believe we're meant to be at the right time, and we get off the train. And then we go and help another organization, and the people on that train have then built new skill sets. They've had a great opportunity to be part of a growing organization because transformation typically leads to growth. It also drives extra value. And from Mark and my perspective, we like to leave behind a legacy. So we leave behind ways of doing things. We leave behind governance and frameworks. We leave behind skilled people who can continue to do strong project management in the future. But of course, a key aspect of transformation is digital. It's all about digital. But why do we do digital changes? We have to remember that technology is an enabler. But technology is also driven around processes. And processes are needed within an organization upon which to function. And sometimes processes can be quite manual, and sometimes they might not be manual. But an objective of transformation is not to fix everything within a business. It's to look at where you drive value and what is it that we need to do, always with the customer in sight. So don't want to talk much about processes because this podcast is more focused on technology. But Mark, I think we should now move and talk more around how technology helps transformation.
Now let's talk about the other key component of digital transformation, that being technology. Now, as Trish said, a lot of people see transformation as being driven by technology. However, technology is just an enabler, and transformations are owned and driven by the businesses themselves to meet their needs and the needs of their customers. We can't forget the customer. The customer sometimes gets diluted in a large transformation program. We've got to bring it back to what the customer wants. How are they satisfied? How do we measure that? What is that customer experience? What is that customer journey? But we'll talk about that a little bit later. What is important is, how can everybody leverage digital technology to be ahead of the competition, first in class? How do you drive new innovative ways of doing things? Technology is not just for customers, but to be enhanced for businesses. I think it's more important to give a couple of concrete examples that we can give you based on our experience and clients we work with. I'll start with the first one, with B2B example, which sometimes I don't talk too much about, in digital transformation and technology. And this is, again, a portfolio company of a private equity fund that's in the commercial vehicle leasing business. They're headquartered in Paris, and they have operations all over Europe. They had two different distinct projects in their transformation that required digital technology. The first one is what they call, I'll say it in French, Service Client 2.0, or Customer Service 2.0, where this client had a network of garages in France that serviced the customers. And what they needed to do is to deploy a number of digital tools that were going to not only improve the entire customer experience and their journey, but also to drive efficiencies. And in fact, the mandate was to improve efficiencies by 12% within 3 years of the transformation. So what did that mean? Within the garages, a truck comes into the garage. What happens first? There's a technical receptionist that takes a tablet, and they register the customer. They put in all the information in detail because that customer has already used another tool to book their appointment, whether that appointments were a repair, whether it was a regulatory visit that you have to do in the commercial vehicle leasing industry. And so by the fact that they have all this information on a tablet, they can check in the customer. Is there anything else that needs to do? Oh, well, maybe on the vehicle, there's something else that needs to be repaired. There's something else that has to be looked at. And in addition to that, if there was, because for this particular client, insurance was a big part of their business. I believe is what, Trish, 1/3 of the gross margin of French P&L. So if there was an insurance claim that was made on the vehicle, the technical receptionist could take that tablet, which they never used before, take photos, send in the claim directly so that the claim could be processed much more quickly. So again, another gain in efficiency. A gain in efficiency by identifying other things that the customer perhaps didn't know that they needed, but they have to do when they service the vehicle. So again, other efficiency gains, and also having an impact on revenue. Other types of tools that they would use, for example, let's say a customer doesn't want to take their vehicle to, and we're talking trucks, right? We're talking big trucks, semi-tractor trucks, utility vehicle trucks. Perhaps that they don't want to go to a garage within France. They want to have the car serviced on their parking lot. It may be a part of a big fleet of different, for a different client. For example, the French postal company, La Poste. And in that case, the mechanics would use a smartphone with different functionalities so they can go directly to the truck, wherever the customer is at, make the repair, record all the information, take photos if necessary, and then process those repairs. So here's some examples in a B2B environment of how digital tools are critical to be able to gain efficiency, improve customer experience and journey, and also to hit the bottom line by being more efficient, lower costs, lower transaction costs, so that it's a part of the whole transformation journey of this customer. So again, technology was an enabler for this particular B2B example. But let's give another B2C example. Trish?
Yes, so for a B2C example, I was fortunate enough to be involved in the creation of a digital bank. So this is a very different example to what Mark's described. And why is it so different? Well, first of all, the bank existed, but the bank existed using infrastructure and technology that belonged to somebody else. So when the business changed ownership, they needed to create everything from scratch. What does that mean? It means everything from desktops, from all of the cabling, from actually routing new cabling, having everything in situ to operate a business successfully. But it was also about what the proposition was to create a digital bank that was 24/7 operation, supported by new branding. And of course, because the bank was owned previously by somebody else, we had to migrate all customers. And that meant all of customer data, so a lot of data security aspects, and there was financial data involved. So there was also a lot of regulations that we needed to follow. So when we talk about technology, there are so many different parts to technology. There's all the common roles and the common pieces that we know about engineering and coding, But there's also lots of other pieces like, does the Wi-Fi work in the building? Can we service our own employees as well as servicing our own customers? So this whole transformation program took about 18 months. And it's a long time to work on one piece of work, but I can assure you that when you implement something, it's on a large scale, you get a great feeling of reward afterwards when you've been able to do it. So across the experience that Mark and I both have, we've touched on many different types of technology projects. And again, some of the most recent ones are around the digital and the mobile phones and the applications. And you will have all seen examples of that, especially as things have developed even in the last 6 to 12 months with COVID. Okay, so we talked about the customer, and everything that we do, we always bring it back to the customer because the customer is very important. And some companies can get it wrong, and there are companies that have got it wrong. And the reality is that you need to listen to the customer. So whatever you get involved with in your future and in your careers, whatever you're asked to do from a technology viewpoint, always make sure that there's a customer need. Always make sure that somebody has clearly explained to you the customer experience, the customer journey. And often, again, businesses think they know the customer journey, they know which route the customers take, and therefore they believe that they're servicing the customer. And what they don't realise is that they need to understand the pain points. So as a customer, what are your pain points? And I can give you a class example where a business got it very right and are now slowly getting it very wrong. And I'm going to use a bank, and I will actually name them in the podcast, Charlie, if that's okay, which is First Direct Bank, was created about 30 years ago as a telephone bank. Its proposition was about, we will answer our calls to customers. And in recent times, because of course they're directing everybody to the mobile phone, which is great, they're not answering the phone. And during COVID, they're not answering the phone. And now there are a lot of what were loyal customers who went to First Direct because of that proposition. And First Direct are now forgotten that the reason why their customers went to them is because they wanted to talk to them on the phone. And they think that because they've put digital technology in place, they don't need to talk to customers anymore. And that's not true. So a very simple example, and I'm sure maybe many of you can think of lots of other examples, whether it's banking or in restaurants where you've perhaps not had the best customer experience. Mark and I have been very fortunate to work alongside other people who are specialists in customer experience and very much learn from them. And for us, customer and people are two of the key components about why Times3 is successful in what we do. So in terms of this podcast and in terms of summary, we've talked about people, touched upon processes, and talked about technology. The message really is that digital technology is anything and everything that you can do to improve customer experience and the value of an organisation. That's what it is. It's not really anything that's complicated. And I know that all of us will have experienced, especially sadly in the last 18 months, examples relevant to COVID where we will have seen changes in the marketplace. For example, we couldn't go to shops for many months, specifically in the UK, but I'm sure that's the same in other countries. As a result, internet spending has increased. People went online to buy more. Some brands have now made a decision not to open their high streets anymore and to remain online. So other factors outside of our control are driving changes, which is required technical assistance. Consequently, we've also seen businesses with lots of people working remotely where they've needed very quickly to get their people to operate remotely. And some companies have been very open and said, please bear with us while our customers advisors are working remotely, but we'll answer your call, etc. Clearly not First Direct, but other customers. So from our perspective, we're very fortunate that we get involved in many different aspects of technology. We're very fortunate we get involved in transformation programs, and we've done some smaller pieces of work as well as some bigger pieces of work. We assess a lot of the risks. You have to consider risk because it's a lot of money that you spend when you do digital transformation. But company value isn't just driven by results. It's therefore driven by the value of the people. So when we have the right people and we upskill the people, when we bring the people on that train journey, they have a value to an organization, as does the customer. So when we talk about profit and how much a company is worth as much as its people and as much as its customers and its customers' interaction with that brand. And that is all underpinned and supported by technology, and specifically in today's world, digital technology.
No, absolutely, Trish. And I think just to add up on that, all companies are different. Not every company is going to be a leader in digital transformation. There will be those that will be fast followers. There will be those that are slow adopters. Every company has their speed of that train transformation journey that they have to make. And they all have different objectives. And we're always conscious of that. I'm sure that many of you out there have seen that, whether within your own businesses, whether interacting as a customer, or whether making a pitch and being a supplier, whatever the case may be. All kinds of different speeds on that transformation train journey.
So from a career advice point of view, for everybody that's listening today, and I hope you're finding this session useful, some of the key points that we would suggest to you around career advice is that to recognise that there's lots of roles in technology. There's lots of roles within technology-based organisations, whether they're now the new fintechs, the startups, the scale-ups that are going on at the minute. There's lots of different roles. There are these very clearly defined engineering type development roles. But what we wanted to highlight today is that what we do in transformation and technology management, there are other roles that maybe are not as obvious to you as the standard roles. So when you're looking at your career and you're thinking about where you might want to develop in the future, please remember that there are lots of other roles out there, and not every one of them requires you to be able to code. Not every one of them requires you to have a very detailed technical understanding, but you do need other well-rounded skills. So the ones that clearly, from our perspective, we've been very fortunate because from what we do, we have like a bird's eye view across the business. We get to understand what lots of different business areas do. And by business areas, I'm talking about HR, I'm talking about working with finance, I'm talking about working with marketing, not just working with IT. And as well, we obviously work across different industries. So when you can understand about how to deliver transformational technology projects, that skill set is transferable and you can move across industries. And both Mark and I have done that. So we're proven examples that it can work. So when you think about the roles and the career that you want to move forward to, something like transformation and technology transformation and project management may not appeal to you in the first instance as something that you want to do, but it will be interesting down the line how many of you move down that career path in the future, because it's a growing arena. It's an exciting arena. We get involved in lots of different things. We get to see things from a strategic viewpoint of the business, and we get to see real results. And from our perspective, a lot of being able to deliver technology transformations and technology programs is that you want to be able to see the end result. Mark, would you like to add?
Yeah, thanks, Trish. I would say, building upon everything else that you said, if people can get as much international experience as they can, it's going to increase your clout, make you more valuable, make yourself more valuable, and make your CV stand out. Now, with Zoom technology, with Microsoft Teams or whatever, this podcast, we're in 3 different locations in 2 different countries. You don't have to get on an airplane anymore. You don't have to travel so far to get that international experience, although face-to-face meetings are always useful. You don't need to be able to speak multiple languages. We're very fortunate that English is the business language of the world. What I mean in terms of international experience is working with different people in different cultures, understanding that the way that business is done in the UK versus France versus Spain versus Italy is completely different. And knowing how do you succeed in those different business environments is very important. And now with all this technology, we have a great opportunity to get as much international experience as possible, which is all a part of diversity and inclusion. different ways of working, different business cultures, different ways of managing customers, different ways of documenting processes, different ways of using technology. And that can only create value for somebody looking to move on their career path.
And the only bit
And
that
of course,
I'd also ask,
continuing education, Trish, is super important. You gave the example about us doing a masterclass in customer experience. We are always learning, and whether you do that in formalized settings or whether you do that organically, it's super important to keep learning. You have no choice but to keep up with what's happening in the marketplace.
and that was the point I was going to make, Mark, is that even today, even with all our experience, we're always learning, and we will continue to learn as we move forward. So Charlie, anything you'd like to ask us?
Well, what a fascinating show and overview. I'm in awe, I have to say, and how well articulated, but also the journey you've just taken us on in really understanding transformation, but breaking it down into people, process, and technology. But I guess I don't have a question, but I have a really clear takeaway personally from myself, which was your emphasis on people, and that seems to me it's equal between the customer and the employee, and they're critical. And the notes I was taking in this, I was scribbling them down because I've learned a lot. So thank you for myself, even in my world of understanding. But the customer experience plus efficiencies and how digital tools are critical to be able to hit the bottom line, but actually you've got to understand what the customer needs, and you've got to use technology to improve the journey and the experience. And if you understand the pain points, that's what's going to make success. And I think that's what kept resonating, and a lot of what we've discussed, or you've discussed, is the people aspect along with process and technology is what transformation is really about. And I guess you've also given a lovely insight into how people can get into transformation, but they don't have to have a technology background, or they don't have to have a specific education, but they do have to, I guess, if I'm not putting words in your mouth, you've got to be a continuous learner. You've got to be someone who can understand the intricacies of an organization. And as you said with the train analogy, how to get from A to B, but be willing to take on more carriages, or to adapt the journey to hit what the customer wants. Is that a fair summary from a non-transformation expert like yourselves?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary, Charlie. And I think it's also to understand that in the world, sometimes there is conflict. People within organisations have different viewpoints, but it's always good, and certainly in the role that we play, to be able to talk to companies and to say, don't forget this, what about this? So it's also about how we leverage our expertise to bring value to them in their thinking. But yeah, Charlie, that's a really good summary.
Well, thank you both. This is the time has flown by in a brilliant way. That was captivating, I have to say. And for people who have sort of followed our podcast series, they know I sort of interject quite a bit. And this was one show where I truly didn't need to, as you really articulated that brilliantly. So Trish, on behalf of Future Scale and Mark, on behalf of Future Scale, but also Future Tech and our listeners, that was truly an education and a lovely insight into what ×3 the time you've given to pass that knowledge on. And I always like to remind everyone, this is such an insight into the different professions add, and I think you've presented the transfer or specialism super well. So
thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. Thank you to all the listeners out there.
This episode of our Future Tech podcast, people will know now, is both on our teas, and it's also on our LinkedIn channel, technical and leadership community. And to all our listeners, this will be...
Thank you for listening to Future Tech with Charlie Sell, a podcast from Arrows Group Global. Please subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode. Arrows Group is a global technology recruitment and workforce solutions provider who focus on people at the heart of all our interactions. With in-depth technology expertise and global candidate communities, we offer bespoke solutions to every client and candidate. To find out more, visit arrowsgroup.com.